Joe Donlin.
And I'm Erica Sargent. Here at CBS Chicago, announcing the new class of Red Cross Heroes is one of the highlights of our year.
We always look forward to it. 12 extraordinary individuals from right here in our area honored for their acts of bravery, dedication, and service to our community. So after a disaster, we know the Red Cross is there, but it's our first responders who were on the ground from the start.
And 3 Chicago firefighters didn't hesitate when they got the call of a baby inside a burning apartment building. They're this year's Firefighter Heroes.
Now let's get to some breaking news this morning. A little girl, 3 adults in the hospital this morning after a fire broke out in an apartment.
It happened on the city's west side in the South Austin neighborhood.
There was a heavy volume of fire coming out of the front of the building on the first floor, and the fire was starting to lap up to the second floor. You have to believe there's people inside. It was Mike and I first. Jeff was coming behind us. It's zero visibility. You literally cannot see your hand in front of your face. And we could hear somebody right away. She kept saying, like, my baby's in there, my baby's in there. So our first thing was to get her out, and then the 3 of us went back up.
So you just kind of start feeling around. I came across what felt like a mattress. There was a lot of debris on the ground. Some told me to kind of kneel onto the bed and sweep a little further, and that's when I felt an arm. Jeff and I helped carry her out together, and that's when Paul went in and continued to search in that bedroom.
I was moving debris, and I saw a foot, and so then I peeled the debris off, and that was when I found the 3-year-old girl.
It's always nice to help anybody, but when there's innocent people and children involved, and we were able to actually get in there and help, it does seem to hit you a little bit harder. That, you know, it means a little bit more.
At a fire like this, it's not uncommon to have 25 or more people. It's a team effort. It would not be possible if it weren't for all the other people that were there with us. A very large percentage of fatalities or serious injury could probably be avoided if there was better use of smoke detectors. Mike, Jeff, and myself are getting acknowledged for this, but if it weren't for all of the other people there, we would not have been able to do that.
A parent's pain of losing a child is immeasurable, but one mother decided to take her pain and turn it into purpose to keep her son's legacy alive. Yvonne Blake is this year's Blood Services hero.
My son, Jaden, is an amazing young man. Jaden is, I'd say he's a social activist, committed to community service, and a dedicated athlete. His school did a blood drive, and Jaden is a science geek, and part of what they explained to them is that 1 donation can save 3 lives. He was fascinated by that. Jaden was a student at Grand Valley University in Michigan, Grand Valley State. He was there on an academic as well as an athletic scholarship. He was going to a football game. Jaden is driving, and he was hit head on by a truck. It was, I think, one of the worst calls you ever get. We were at the hospital. Jaden was already in an induced coma. He had severe injuries, and he was in the intensive care unit. So he never regained consciousness, but I'm very grateful that I got to spend that last week of his life with him. Jaden got about 40 units of blood products. And then when we realized that we weren't gonna get the miracle that we'd prayed for, we decided, okay, we're going to let something good happen and we'll have Jaden be an organ donor. Well, Jaden was tired, and he didn't look like he was gonna hold on for them to get that process done. And in between, there was almost another 20 units of blood that got him to the finish line. So I will always be grateful that we were at a level 1 trauma center and the blood was available. People started asking, what can we do? How can we help? And we said, just go donate. Jaden is cleaning out the bank, so we need you to donate. And that's kind of how it started. It's important for me to honor Jay. As a nurse, I give blood. And I've seen how people that you thought weren't gonna make it. And a large part of that is because of that gift of life that someone donated. Blood donation is very simple, very easy, but the impact is stupendous. So for me to do this means I'm able to honor Jaden often. And it got me to thinking that there's a lot of misconceptions around blood donation and that often African Americans don't do it as much as some of the other people might. People of color often have difficulty with access. That's why it was so important for me that that first drive allow his friends a chance to give. Many of our donors are first-time donors, again, because Jaden's foundation and Jaden's blood drives are reaching people that may not have donated before. I think Jaden would be happy about it, and it keeps my son alive. Every time somebody reaches out to us and says, we'd like to host a drive in Jaden's honor, that's the beauty. So I think he would be pretty pleased that we were taking up the mantle in his honor, and he would be screaming go as loud as heaven's doors would allow.
A U.S. Navy veteran is using his own experiences to help homeless veterans and families in Chicago. Melvin Bridgman founded Outreach Chicago, and since 2010, they've helped 16,000 people. He's this year's military hero.
I served aboard the USS Cowichewee. I was stationed at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. And I ended up homeless for about maybe 10 years until I went to the VA and went through the homeless program. They gave me the skills to cope with situations. I'm applying all of that stuff into the work that I do. Outreach Chicago is a nonprofit that serves homeless and low-income individuals. We provide services that other nonprofits don't serve by going out on the street and providing food, clothing, and toiletries. My motto is, you don't leave nobody behind. Regular homeless people, they count. They need to come home too.
I met Melvin at a volunteer event. Melvin could be anywhere in the world, and he was choosing to do this work, and it made you inspired to want to be able to do it with him.
I go out on the street and I find out where homeless individuals are at, try to find out what they need. We have helped 16,000 people.
He's going to places and locations that as he experienced homelessness, he actually visited himself. You see a sense of joy and pride in people's faces to feel as if a member of our community is here to serve us.
A couple of people say, you know what? If you hadn't came along, man, I would have did something to myself. I need to be out here because I could save somebody. They're not somebody that's worthless, because with the right type of help, those people can pull themselves up. I'm just another vet giving back to the community, doing what needs to be done.
This year's Community Impact Hero found a need in his community and in turn changed the lives of hundreds of people.
For the last 20 years, Keith Wallace has worked tirelessly to get individuals with disabilities into college and the workforce, but his work hasn't stopped there.
I'm the executive director for Lincoln Way Special Recreation Association. We partner with 8 park districts to provide recreation opportunities for individuals with disabilities. I had the freedom when I started at Lincoln Way to grow a program, and that's where I came in and started the wheelchair program for individuals with physical disabilities, because there was no programming on the south side of Chicago. Our SRA, I like to say, is the best because we have the best staff and the best team. So we created an atmosphere that anybody will be served. So we want anybody that has any disability, we will have a place for them. That's the mission, that's the goal. We want to create a community without limits. So our wheelchair basketball program, we're the only program on the south side of Chicago. From Chicago all the way down to U of I. There's no other team in between. We have every ethnicity. It's a melting pot of just love. We have a lot of veterans that are coming back and, they have traumatic brain injuries. I started the North American Wheelchair Basketball League, and there's a lot of people out there that they think that the sport should just be for individuals with disabilities, but I have a mindset that we bring more people if we make it inclusive. So I started a league where everybody can play.
I really don't know if I'd be at the school where I'm at without meeting him for wheelchair basketball. He was saying that I could get scholarships for basketball. He said I could play overseas. He said I could be on an Olympic team.
I met a 3-year-old the other day, and I'm already saying, have you talked about college already? But that's a real thing for me, is making sure the parents have a long-term plan for their child. And that's very important, and having a job is an important part in that, so they can take care of themselves.
I think he is willing to do anything to get you where you need to be.
We are creating a workforce that doesn't look the same as others. Typically, we're drawn to people by the outer exterior, and we don't get to meet the inside. And we just got to peel back those layers and take the time to understand people.
This year's LifeSaving Rescue Hero Award goes to Nicole Collins. Collins was chaperoning the homecoming dance last September when a student suddenly collapsed and began to seize.
And then after she got done seizing, I checked her pulse and she didn't have a pulse. So I rolled her to her back and I did 30 compressions. And then I checked her pulse again. She still didn't have one. Did about 25 more compressions and she started to cough. I knew what to do in that moment because I've been practicing and trained for this. I have been CPR and AED certified since I was probably 7. I saw a helpless child and it just kind of kicks in when you see somebody that needs help. I think it's just a natural instinct. People should take CPR class or get certified in CPR because you never know when you're going to use it and can save a life. Her dean did let me know that she was okay the next day, and then she actually came and saw me on Monday. She gave me this card when she came to my office, and it warms my heart because it says, "You saved my life, and I cannot thank you enough, Nicole. Bless your heart, Bridget."
Over the past few years, we have seen a critical shortage of healthcare workers. But when crises happen, it's all hands on deck. This year's healthcare hero, Nicole Jackson, didn't hesitate when seconds counted.
I work for Advocate Trinity Hospital. I work in the emergency department, so we see everything.
Nicole is small in stature, but she is a giant as a nurse.
On June 23rd, we had multiple gunshot victims came into the emergency department. We had called an ambulance to take one of the victims to a higher level of care, which was not an ambulance with a critical care nurse. So they needed a nurse to ride with that victim. We were short-staffed and the nurses were working very hard, and even though it was the end of my shift, I needed to go with that patient so that we wouldn't take away from the nursing staff that was already there caring for critical patients.
That day when Nicole went out on the ambulance, if she hadn't, chances are he would not have survived. Advocate Trinity sits on the southeast side of Chicago. We have a large percentage of Medicare, Medicaid patients. Anyone who walks through our doors, who comes here by ambulance, who needs our assistance, is gonna get the best quality care possible. That's not always the case for particularly Black and brown people.
I decided to become a nurse because I was in a position where I was sick and someone had to care for me, and I've also been around family members and people who care for sick people. I've seen the compassion that they've had for them, and I wanted to do the same thing.
Nicole is the pillar of compassion, of empathy, taking to the extreme what it means to be a nurse.
The community that we serve at Trinity, they have multiple comorbidities and they need someone who cares.
It's really about the care for the community she serves. She is a servant leader.
It's just a privilege to be able to serve. It's a privilege to be able to take care of people.
A former Marshall High School basketball standout and coach was left paralyzed in a shooting while protecting his daughter. Police said it was a case of mistaken identity. Now, Sean Harrington is sharing the lessons he's learned in life and on the court. He's this year's education hero.
Basketball has opened up a lot of doors and broadened my horizons in ways I never would have imagined. Everything I do revolves around helping kids, try to use sports as a tool to continue their education, get out and broaden their horizons.
Basketball was my first love and still is.
Harrington, a Chicago hoops standout and former coach at Marshall High School, appeared in the 90s basketball doc Hoop Dreams.
When you're coaching in the Chicago Public League, you're doing just as much parenting as you are coaching. It was not out of the ordinary to drop kids off at home, give them a couple of dollars to get them something to eat. This was just a regular day on my way to work and dropping off to school. 2 kids down the corner, that same age kids that I work with every day, mistake my car for someone else's car, and me and my daughter just became under fire by a barrage of bullets. At that point in time, it was just about protecting my daughter. The fact that she was able to walk away from that car without a scratch on her body, I would do it all over again. The love and support that I got from north, west, south, east side of Chicago, I had a great support system on this journey that I'm still on.
Back on the court, the first time since he was left paralyzed by a shooting.
Sean Harrington feels at peace at Children of Peace Catholic School.
Teaching pre-K to 8th grade, it's been a blessing. They've been as much as a blessing to me as I've been to them.
If they're surprised by the fact, hey, there's a guy in a wheelchair can teach me how to play basketball, I'm fine with that. Every time I see one of these kids shoot a jump shot and it goes in, I felt like I shot it.
I'm having fun playing these games that I played growing up with these kids and teaching them life lessons, along with just having fun in gym, teaching them how to be a good classmate, how to be a good friend, how to apologize when you're wrong, when you made a mistake. And it's okay to make a mistake. No one's perfect. They say behind every door there's an opportunity. You've always heard teachers tell you that education is the key. So I like to put those together and say that education is the key to open up the doors of opportunity.
A church is a sanctuary, but when gunfire rang out during the 4th of July parade in Highland Park, one Catholic church also became a shelter.
Father Hernan Cuevas Contreras had been on the job only 3 days when the tragedy happened. And because of his actions that day and in the months that followed, he's this year's disaster relief hero.
I was moved to Highland Park in Highwood in July 1st. We as a church wanted to be part of the parade. We wanted to show our community this new parish that came together, Immaculate Conception and St. James. And I just wanted to capture that moment of joy and happiness and encounter with our parishioners.
A sudden burst of gunfire 10 minutes after the start of a 4th of July parade sent parade participants and spectators running for their lives.
When I heard this sounds as fireworks, and I thought that was what it was, but it was not. So I saw people running towards us, and I was confused. But as a leader, I had to guide my community members that were there. So I turned around and I started to tell my parishioners, please run, let's go to church. When I got there, there were already people in the church crying. There was a lot of anxiety. So we want to make sure that everybody was safe and that they were sheltered in the church and taken care of. You never know the intensity of the trauma until you are there, right? Living in that experience and not knowing what is gonna be happening outside.
Eventually we made it to church and the door was open and Father was there and other people were already there. Our new priest, who had just started 2 days before, was now, leading us and through this experience, this unbelievable happening.
50 strangers hunkered down for nearly 4 hours.
Catholics, non-Catholics, we were all there together. There were 3 kids that also were part of this wave of people running away from where the shooting took place. And one thing that we saw was on the shirts, they had this splash of blood because their father was shot. So we took care of them, kept them until their mother came back. We provided right away the following day a healing mass, a mass for the victims and family members, because we saw, again, anxiety, a lot of depression. People needed some kind of support and spiritual guidance.
But also, on the other hand, we saw the sense of unification.
I believe Father Hernan is a hero because he has shown, especially on the 4th of July, his leadership, his caring, his love of fellow man.
Yorkville police officer Alexander Lopez and Aurora officer Andrew Soderlund were both on duty the day before Thanksgiving when a critical call came over the radio. A woman and her 9-year-old child had fallen through the ice on a pond. Their actions that day saved both their lives. They're this year's law enforcement heroes.
We have a person drowning.
Drowning where?
A 911 call sends officers to an Aurora apartment complex.
We have a 9-year-old that fell in the water and they're not able to get out.
When I received the call, I knew it was an elevated type response because of, the circumstances surrounding what was going on. They say, hey, we've got a kid in the water, and then they were, there's a woman in the water. So, we were flying there. You're kind of thinking about what you're going to do when you get there.
When I approached the frozen pond, I could see the woman and the boy in the middle of the pond, kind of through the ice. The boy was on the woman's back, and they were kind of holding on to the edge of the frozen water to keep themselves afloat. So I run as quickly as I can to the shoreline, drop my vest, drop my duty belt, jump into the water, and I just start breaking through the ice as quickly as I can. I try to grab them both to try to pull them toward the shoreline, and as soon as I grab hold of them,
Get back to him.
I can no longer feel the ground underneath me.
There was just no way for them to all make it back because with when you've got two people that are panicked and trying to stay afloat, they're wearing heavy parkas, it's cold outside, they're not able to swim for themselves.
Oh, come on, let's go.
So I then tied a rope to myself and jumped in the water and swam to them, was able to grab them, and then the rope that had been attached to me was pulled by our coworkers on the shoreline to pull us back to shore.
The young boy, along with myself and Officer Solon, had to be transported up to the hospital just to get checked out. We stayed a couple hours in the emergency room along with myself. What sticks with me is the great outcome that we had, the teamwork that we had within our department, with everybody showing up, getting those water rescue kids out to us so that we could have a happy ending to this, horrible incident.
I thought my baby was not gonna be here, and I'm thankful for him.
Berto Awayo is a community organizer and law school student who is making a big difference in our community. He's using his experience as a former gang member to rally kids to stay off the streets. He's this year's social justice hero.
I'm a community organizer, executive director of Increase the Peace. I am also a law student at Northwestern. I got involved with gangs when I was a teenager. Being raised by a single mother who had to work to provide for us meant a lot of time of being unsupervised. And that, coupled with the lack of opportunities, meant not a lot of productive things to do in my community. What it took for me to get out of the gang was really opportunities in my community. Working at an alderman's office in the north side of Chicago helped me see a bigger world. And I didn't even know neighborhoods like Lincoln Park existed. And to see that inequity really sparked something in me. Those experiences are what ultimately led for me to say, enough. I want to not only change myself, but I also want to be part of the change in my community. The mission of Increase the Peace is to give young people the opportunities to be community leaders through policy advocacy, community organizing, and being social agents of change. Increase the Peace has a variety of programs dedicated to youth that are between the ages of 14 to 24. A youth leadership program, a public health ambassadors program, and a legal aid clinic. We've been able to train hundreds of young people, give them paid opportunities to help them see the power within themselves, not only to change their lives, but also to change their communities. Every year now, we host the annual Black and Brown Unity Car Parade to bridge the divide between Black and Brown residents in the south side of Chicago. It's hard work, creating real safe spaces to be able to have those conversations. Whenever I see our youth leaders step up to the plate and shine like the leaders that they are, it's validation that the work that we do helps everyday young people find that power within themselves. I would like the legacy of Increase the Peace and my legacy to be, we made our community a better place through the opportunities that transformed young people's lives.
More than 8,000 migrants have been sent to Chicago, most with nothing but what they could carry. Pastor John Zayas is on the front lines when they get here, giving them the resources they need to begin anew. And he's this year's Global Citizenship Hero.
My church is predominantly Latino. We now serve in the Austin community, and so now we're serving migrants.
When these migrants arrived in Chicago at the end of August, they were in the first wave of many more to come, sent on buses from the southern border.
Texas was sending buses to New York and Washington. The rumors were Chicago was next.
The city of Chicago asked the Red Cross to get involved with the support of the asylum seekers to figure out how to run shelters. The Red Cross wanted to support as much as we can, and part of that comes through our partners and how important it is to partner with a church like Grace and Peace, who's doing the work of the community.
Within 24 hours, we were ready to go. When they are coming off the bus, they're full of trauma. The first thing I do is make sure that they feel safe. We give them a good, hot meal. Shoes, clothing, a shower, everything that they need.
The difference that Pastor John has made in the migrant community is instilling hope by giving them food, shelter, allowing them to learn English, allowing them to work, restoring their dignity.
We worked with the commissioner's office and we said, listen, we have a warehouse.
He said, here we've got a food pantry, we've got outreach programs, we're doing works with migrants already. We've got all these programs in place. Here, look at what we're doing, we can help.
We've worked with over 1,000 migrants. There's been so much that have come through the city. But when I called the commissioner, I said, hey, I got another family. He goes, man, what are we doing? He goes, hey, you're a flagship. You know, people are coming because they know.
This man loves his community. He welcomes people who are hurt, who are injured, who are looking for a better life, looking for hope, looking for love, looking for acceptance.
I'm proud of my team. When we work together, we can do amazing things.
Naomi Melton and Caleb Johnson are definitely inspiring.
At just 6 and 9 years old, they know the true meaning of making connections and helping others in their community. Meet this year's Youth Heroes.
My name's Naomi. My name's Caleb. I am 9.5. And I am 6.5. I saw this man on the street, and I asked my mom, why is he on the street holding a sign? She told me that the people on the street were homeless. I said, I want to start to make food for them and then give it to them so they at least have some food to eat.
The idea of making sandwiches started with both of them. We would drive them, we would, deliver them to the individuals who were in a camp. There were a couple of parks. And then we said, okay, well, let's think about other places. And so that's when we came up with Connections for the Homeless.
Connections for the Homeless is an organization based in Evanston. What Caleb and Naomi have done causes a ripple effect. So with our lunches, it gets people in the door. So say someone's living on the CTA or living on the street, they are looking for resources. Someone may run into someone else, maybe experiencing homelessness, and says, hey, you can go to Connections and get a bagged lunch. They'll give you a sandwich. And as they continue to come and get those sandwiches, they make connections with our employees and our front desk staff, which leads to getting assigned a case manager and coming in to get that bagged lunch. We're then connecting them to getting them out of homelessness.
They use their allowance, they use their savings. They really like doing this.
I feel so happy giving food to the homeless. My goal to help the homeless is at least make 1,000 meals. But right now we're at 500. But if I can make more than 1,000 and complete my goal, I'm gonna go for an even higher one, like maybe 3,000? No, mine's gonna maybe 9 million. Actually, that's gonna go 9 million. And the bags do we sometimes color on, draw on, like make it really fancy sometimes. Make hearts, houses, rainbows. Sometimes people just ignore them. Sometimes they look over it and see, and sometimes they know the homeless is there because they can hear them, but they just don't look over it. They just keep driving. So after we made the sandwiches, we delivered them, and I was so happy to see that person bucket filled, and it filled my bucket too. I want to be able to do this forever.
What a story. Definitely inspiring. 12 people making a difference every single day.
They're inspiring us and hopefully you. To nominate a hero for next year's class or make a donation to keep the Red Cross mission going, head to redcross.org/hero.